Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Ask Us webinar. Today we've got a webinar with the Robinson family, who are a family that I was very fortunate to meet a few years ago and start the journey of having an annex built for the lovely Betty. Gary and Sue, great people, and they are also part of the iHus team, so they allow people into their home to view what we do as a company. If you wish to interact with us, you can literally pop into the chat box or unmute your microphone and also unmute your camera if you wish to. But unmute your microphone and ask questions as we go through. The itinerary we've got, we're going to be talking about the Robinsons themselves, Gary, Sue and Betty, the beautiful Betty. And we'll go through the process that they went through in their home and the build from the initial outlay of speaking to me as one of the sales and development managers, and getting an idea of what they required, what they needed, and building the home that Betty wanted, so that she could be close to the family and everybody could have this multi-generational living, which is what iHus is all about. But before we start and introduce them properly, I'm just going to cover a couple of points, and one of those points is annex living itself. What is an annex? Now, an annex is an ancillary and subservient property, a habitable dwelling that is built within the curtilage of your garden. Yeah. And essentially, it's a timber-framed bungalow in the garden. It includes your bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchen, living area. It's decorated, all the flooring's in there, because what we supply you with is a turnkey package. And that turnkey package means that we complete everything. You give us a flat ground for us to put our foundations in, and we follow it all the way through. Now, we're going to interact with every phase of this presentation that we've got for you today. And then I will go through planning, I will go through the build process, and then we'll have a real good Q&A at the end. But thank you for joining so far. And if you have questions, as I say, pop them in the chat if you wish to do it that way, but unmute your microphone and ask questions away. So let's introduce these three lovely people you can see on screen. Okay, the handsome gentleman is Gary. The beautiful, well, to be fair, Sue's looks more like a daughter than a wife. Sue's sat in the middle, and the lovely Betty is sat on the left-hand side. Nice to have you here this afternoon.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, lovely to see you all again. Okay, so we'll look at the presentation, and what we're going to do is, this is the Robinsons annex. It's a weekly extra, which is one of the larger models in our range. They chose to have a pitched roof. They chose to have some very nice architectural features on the annex. And as you can see on the right-hand side, you can see the beautiful bungalow house that they live in. And architecturally, the back of the house, beautiful glazed area. And they're in the lovely vicinity of Wisbech. And this is the interior footprint. So again, what I'm going to say is this is not quite standard. There's a few things that changed. If you'd like to talk us about your decisions on there, Gary, and the family.
Yeah, sure. I think the first part of the decision-making process was really to work out space. And we struggled with that, to be fair. You know, how big are these things? And this is where the visit to see a built Annexe was a tremendous help to us. It was in the COVID time, so obviously we had to go through that process, and it gave us an idea of space, and where things would be. We took into account in the box, if you like, that is the weekly extra. The sunshine, where would the sunshine be during the daytime? So, where would the north side of it be? What rooms do you want on that? So when you look at the design, the French doors with the little patio outside that we had extended and some rails put round for Bet. That's the sunny side during the day in the master bedroom. Next to it on the bottom left, that again is the sunny sort of side. The kitchen and the utility room, the bathroom, the second bedroom, whilst the second bedroom has a end of day window for sunshine, all the other side is pretty much the northern side of the property. So positioning it for us was important as to what it was. We incorporated things in the kitchen when we got used to get thinking about these things. We had a Velux put in above it to give some natural daylight and ventilation, which has proved useful as well. During the sort of not seriously hot days, but I know you've benefited from opening the electric window just to have a little bit of fresh air in, any cooking smells, that sort of thing, because obviously it's open plan here. We loved the way that when we had the box, we could sort of work with iHus to chop and change it. And as with anything that you consider, when it comes to dimensions, again, we like the way that iHus could redraw if we decided to change something. And whilst we are, I certainly consider myself and the two ladies here, we're all lay people when it comes to designing buildings. So we were quite reassured by the help and guidance that we were given from yourself, Nigel, as well as all the other members of the team. And that continued actually all through the build process. Something that I'd experienced with other build projects, both here at home and in business. Things suddenly appear to you from nowhere. What about this? How about if we did that, etc.? And even at that stage, there was an opportunity to make some minor, subtle changes, before things got too far. One of the main things that stuck in my mind was when you look at the design here, we've spoken about the veranda, if you want to call it that, outside the French door. We wanted a viewing panel put in so that from the main property we could see, Betty was up and about and got the TV on, etc. And so we had that installed. Where you want the main entrance door, all these things can change. But the walkway, because we have a slightly elevated main residence to where it is in the garden. So we were originally, this drawing we're looking at here was the first drawing showing a standard area to walk and then a slope running down. And only when the build guys got on site, did they suggest to me, well, what about if because this is at a certain height, what about if we continued it all the way onto your patio? So there's no steps.
I'm jumping the gun for you. There you go. So this is what Gary's talking about. This is the entrance into the end gable of the property. This was what he's trying to explain to you. This was originally set out to be a stepped and ramped area to the annex. I don't think there's any more on the outside there.
No. But this area here would have gone down onto, if you hold that one, Nigel, that you just there you go. You can see the ramped area coming down. And we changed that. So basically now, if you go back to one of the other pictures, actual pictures, that's it, keep going back there.
Sure, look, see if there's no, I think
before that, I think. There we go.
That's the best one.
Yeah, that one you had there. You can see the extension of all on a pretty much a similar level. I mean, there is a few mil difference, but it literally means that Betty walks out of a back door along that walkway and straight onto a level patio. Obviously, do you mind me telling your age? No, Betty's 93 now, and obviously steps can prove to be a bit of a hazard at times. So we wanted to eliminate that if we could. And the guys at iHus, even during the build process, this was suggested we'll get more materials brought to site. We'll extend that. We'll extend the walk rail. And then Bet has no steps to counter going from the annex to the main property. So it was great in that respect. And as I say, the flexibility of where you want your windows, what sort of window you want, where you want your lights to be, you know, how you want your doors opening, etc. It was great. It was just flexible, and that was something that I found quite helpful and reassuring.
Lovely. We just drop back to the images where we were when we're looking at that footprint. Yeah, what Gary's explaining to you there, again, to reiterate to future customers and people that are looking at annexes at the moment, we're in a position to look at our core annexes, and those core annexes are there to give you an idea and a guideline of what we can do. But I will say that on my behalf, 96% of all customers that come on board will want to change something, whether it's externally, in size, width, length, or whether it's internally by maneuvering rooms around that suit their requirements. I'll give you a perfect example. The one that I'm designing today for a lady and gentleman, they needed an extra room inside their annex because the gentleman is not a well man, and he doesn't mind me telling you this because I asked him if I could mention him today. He's currently undergoing some medical treatment, and that medical treatment is kidney dialysis. So they need a room for a portable dialysis machine to save the journey to and from the hospital. So that's what we gear us around. Now, our standard footprints, no longer than 20 meters, no wider than 6.8 meters. And that's to give us a base where we can comply with a dual planning application that we go with for every single annex. We apply for planning as a standard householder planning, and we also apply for planning as a certificate of lawfulness. So it's a dual planning application. And we can go into more detail for you that on another webinar, or even if you want to speak to me face to face. So moving on from the footprint design, there has been some alterations to our standard footprint, mainly gauging to make sure we've got the correct kitchen layout and access to the building. And one lovely feature that Gary and everybody decided upon was the fake gable in front of the French doors. And that gable gives an architectural feeling which coincides and helps with the rest of the architecture and for the surrounding area and from their home. So we're now going to move on and talk about, you can see what has just been discussing with you, the ramp there. So this is an elevation. Now these are the render drawings that we complete right from the very get-go. When we've had a virtual consultation with you, I will try and gauge everything that you want in your annex to start with. And we do draft drawings. And those draft drawings can be, sometimes it can be correct first time round. We might do 7 or 8 different drafts of drawings and images for you to choose from, because we might get it right, but actually, can we move this door? So we do it several times. So these elevations, these are also things that we would submit with the planning application. These are true architectural and design drawings. And again, when you look at this footprint drawing, you can see how it had a ramp originally. And now that ramp that slopes down connects directly to their patio. And now we're going to talk about the construction. As I said, it's a timber framed bungalow. And when we talk about wall panels themselves, we have phenomenal exterior gauge thickness, and this helps with the R and U values of the property. We now comply to the new Part L legislation, which is for ventilation and insulation. So we move forward with the times all the time, and we now have a B rating for our U values for the whole annex. And should you decide to move down the realms of having solar, it then becomes an A-rated building. So that's very tantamount to what we do. And Gary may interject now, because from the start of the build, once the first foundation panels have gone in and the footprints, the skeleton quickly goes up, doesn't it?
It does, yes. I think it was, I'd say, fascination when we thought about the whole process. I did keep a pictorial log, actually, all the way through the build process and interior fit out. But yeah, I remember the fascination with how the screws were put in the ground, which obviously, depending on a soil test, will determine what sort of foundation the annex sits on. Then I remember the lorry turning up with masses and masses of materials. The guys are moving, from front to back of the property. And once the sort of base is in, and all of a sudden, within what seemed like a day or two, you've got what is the framework of the annex. It's all pre-built off site, and just arrives, and the guys literally put it together in front of your eyes. Sorry, well, you got to say something there, Nigel?
Yeah, I'm just going to interject with you there. So yeah, one of the key things about our build is it's built from scratch on site. It's not like where you look at log cabins and lodges, which are delivered in two halves. Although we may build on the certificate of lawfulness, which is the Caravan Act, we build exactly the same. And all the buildings are built to building regulations and building code. And you do get a sign-off sheet at the end. But Gary mentioned there about the foundations. Well, there's three main foundations for the build. One is hexagonal screw piles, which fortunately Gary's were built on. That's our proven and favourite method of foundations, because it's fully adjustable to make sure we have a phenomenally square site and level site. The second style of foundation would be our concrete pylons, which have a thing called a swift plinth on the top. How to explain that quickly? Imagine the Pyramid of Giza in a very small form with a large metal cast bracket on the top, which again is adjustable to make sure we've got a plumb level build. And worst case scenario would be a concrete pad. And yes, it's a process that at times, if you had one of those cameras that literally took a picture like you see in the live living programs, David Attenborough sort of things, where slowly you see birds hatch. If you put a time camera on our builds, everybody would be really surprised how cleverly engineered they are and how easy it is for assembly.
Yeah, it literally goes up relatively quickly, and seems to come together. I mean, as I say, every day just brought another fascination as to how things were going together. And it's also worth mentioning, I know you probably got different teams, Nigel, that do this sort of work, but the team we had on site here was 4 guys, and each one of them gave tremendous feedback. If you got a question, the answer was there, and I can't think of one, but I'm sure if they didn't have the answer, then they would find it out very readily to you. But they were constantly letting you know what was going to be happening the next day, where they were at, who would be arriving on site, and just, you felt part of it without actually having anything in your hands to do any work. You were kept informed all the way along the way. And again, as I said earlier, we're lay people. We don't do buildings, so you have to rely on expertise. But that was something that you felt quite reassured about, that people were on it, knew what they were doing. Things happened when they should happen, and I would say to any prospective, purchaser of an iHus Annexe, that's what you'll get. It's the reassurance factor that it's a major investment. It was for us a major investment. We wanted to make sure it was right for Bet to have the right sort of property, and that's where this sort of stuff that Nigel's talking about on the screen here is really important, because you can see the in-depth nature of it. We felt, I think also, I don't know if there'll be pictures coming along later, but we almost felt like we were living in it before it was even built, before anything was done on site, because we were given so much information. This is a technical drawing, to be fair, for the build. I'd never seen this sort of technical drawing, but the other ones prior to, yeah, and the pictures. I don't think you'll probably have it, Nigel, but I remember you standing on our patio with my barbecue in the picture, and you took a picture of where it would go, and then you sent me a drawing or a picture that was the end product in place before it even been built, even been signed off to say yes, we go ahead, etc. So you can feel like you're living it. You know what it's going to feel like, and the end result is exactly what we were given from, is it called CAD drawings or something?
Well, yeah, and the CGI equipment that we have. Thank you for all your mentions there, Gary. But we, as a sales and design and development team, I have 4 members of the design, structural engineer, and architectural drawings. We have a team of 4, and that's Amy, Tom, Dane, and Andy. Andy and Dane tend to do all the technical work, which is designing and making sure that the engineering loads and checking that the rafters are the right proportion and for the right weight gain and so on and so forth. They do the more technical stuff, which is what we were looking at in this drawing. Because every single build, even if it's identical build to somebody else, will have a method, and that build method is what the guys follow. And Amy and Tom, they're the people who do your design work and make sure that the rooms fit correctly. But they also are extremely skilled in creating CGI, so computer-generated images, which look like photographs.
Yes.
Which means exactly what Gary's saying. We can superimpose the annex in the garden. Now let's look at this. The picture we're looking at now. This is an actual photograph, because Gary does tend his lawns very well. But this photograph, the CGI was very, very similar. Now imagine that there was let's say there was a garden shed there or a summer house there, and we were replacing that building. They are that skilled that they can airbrush out other buildings and put the building in to give you a perspective of how it's going to look. And that's important, because when we do that sometimes before I visit you on site, and once I come to visit you on site and I stake the annex in the ground when I do my survey, you will then get a real idea of size and space. A photograph's great, but when you actually see it pegged in the ground, you'd be surprised how many times I've done that and people say, oh gosh, I didn't realize it was going to be that big, or wow, doesn't it go far down the garden? So there's lots of things, and having that imagery is tantamount. And they also do the internals too, Gary, don't they?
Yes, yeah. And again, this, as I said earlier, it sort of brings the sort of more livable space. You can see yourself almost walking through the property, but again, before it's even started. So that again is great. And the end result is just bang on what the CGI does for you to start with. So you know exactly. When I talk about living in it, it's more a case of you can picture your furniture in it, you can picture your TV on the walls and everything. It's where your beds are going to go. I mean, you can see on the previous drawings that you put in on the drawings exactly which way you're going to have your beds and that sort of thing. So it does make it It's not a surprise when it's built, put it that way. The surprises are all gone. You've ironed anything that could have been an issue out in the discussion process, there's no surprises for you.
And materials. I mean, what Gary and his family decided upon was that they were sticking with the standard materials that we utilise. This is a Marley Seadrill weatherboard. This is a cement fiberboard cladding, which we supply in 4 standard colours. There is optional colours, and we also do timber frame as well. So this suited the garden and their needs and the look tremendously. If you're fortunate to go and visit on an openers visit, you'd see how beautiful a home they have. And for me, this is just added to that structure and the layout. So we're now going to move on to the kitchen. Now, all of our annexes come with a kitchen. We have 2 different styles of kitchen. We have a shaker style that has handles, as you can see in this image. We have gloss, which is a handleless type of annex of kitchen. Worktops, standard equipment that comes as standard with the annex is stainless steel sink, hob, extractor, splashback, as you can see there, oven with fan and grill. So we then develop the kitchen on what your requirements are. Now, we do have people who want wine fridges in there. We've got people who want induction hobs, washing machines. Now, their build, fortunately, has a utility room, so doesn't take up space in the kitchen having a washing machine in there, because that goes into the utility. But we can design a kitchen that suits your needs. It may be that I'll give you another instance of another client of mine, which is a lady called Laura, who went for polished concrete worktops because her and her daughter are extreme bakers. They make pastry and they bake in all the time. So they wanted these extra cold work surfaces. So we can put those things in with you as well. It may be that you want an integrated microwave. In this case, as you can see, Betty's got a 70-30 integrated fridge freezer on the right-hand side where you come into the entrance. And we move the kitchen around. We move the light around as well. Betty's back wall of the annex goes onto a neighbour's garden fence. That's where their boundary line is. So you can see we've integrated the window near the sink at the end there. And also she decided she wanted to have the Velux window, which is an electrically operated window, which is open and closed by the flick of a switch. You know, you have poles and pushing pulls and things like that. Lighting array, you can see we've got some integrated spotlights, and because their annex is a pitched roof, you can see that the ceiling there is vaulted. So the sides of the ceiling are vaulted. It's flat ceiling in the centre, which is at 3.05 metres, but the annex itself has got vaulted ceilings in certain parts. Over the bedrooms, they've got a loft space. But the choice of kitchens, when I came to the house for you to pick, Gary, what was that like?
That was fairly straightforward, I think it's fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
I know you sort of laid the stuff out on the mat in our lounge, and because you could see everything laid out, it was a case of, right, let's move on to kitchen doors, handles, worktops, yeah. I noticed Betty didn't go for the polished concrete because she's not baking.
Bless you, Betty.
But yeah, the process was easy. Flooring was done at that time as well. What sort of colour flooring you wanted to have in. And it's worth probably mentioning at this point as well about decorating colours. You know, if people are sort of interior design people, they might want to have feature walls, that sort of thing.
That's right.
And we were told, and I assume that's still the case, Nigel,
It is.
you know, well, if you want a special color, just get the paint and our painters will put it on for you. They'll finish it in a professional way. So we were able to do a little bit of that, to change, to, you know, to give
You need more character. Yeah.
personal touch. And I think what I would say is that you don't, because you don't buy something standard. I mean, I think I'll be right in saying probably nobody out there has actually had exactly the same annex that Bet has. So it's a very personal thing. And when you can choose your own interior design features as well, it does give you more of a personal addition. Sue just mentioned about the bathroom. Again, thinking ahead, we wanted grab rails we had put in for a seat, shower seat put in. Oh, there we go. Yep, see the grab rails in there, shower seat. We didn't get, as part of the package, the above the sink cabinet, you know, the little cabinet for your bits and pieces. But again, the guy said, pop out, Gary, get what you want, bring it back, we'll put it on for you, not a problem. So I'm not a DIY person. Getting that put in was great. Yeah, so these are the things that we felt quite reassured by. But everything else, and another important feature for us in the shower was that the base of the shower is non-slip. You can't see it so much there, but it feels a little bit like I don't know how you describe it, sort of like a gritted sort of feature, but it's totally non-slip. Again, a great safety feature, as opposed to the smooth shower trays that you can get, where they get wet and you can slip and slide around a little bit. It's a great feature, certainly for Bet. In the utility, again, just to show the flexibility, to get everything in we needed, the guys put in a shelf. So Bet not only had a washing machine, she had a tumble dryer above it as well. So yeah, that was a positive one for us as well. So yeah, the flexibility is there, you know, and as you say, laying all the stuff out, choosing. It was quite quick and easy. It surprised me, you know, things that can be a difficult decision just came together quite easily.
Again, we're just going to cover this the living space that we've got here. They chose one of the most popular flooring materials that we use, but there's an array of choice of colours to suit your tastes, every individual's taste. But I think with the way that they gave Betty's new home a kind of cottage feel. So cozy and warm with the colour choices, then the natural looking. Now, believe it or not, that does look like a real oak floor, but that is one of our heavy duty laminates, which does present to look like a real oak floor. And because it's a turnkey package, so all the floorings, the decoration, the doors, it's all included. All you're going to do is, as you can see here, this is before Betty moved in her soft furnishings, settees and things like that. We have changed certain aspects since Gary and the family had theirs built. So bathroom cabinets are now, because we constantly got requested them, we've added them to our build too. But anything that you, for instance, if you decided that you didn't want laminate flooring in your bedroom, for instance, there is nothing stopping us removing the laminate flooring so you could have carpet. We are there to work with you to make sure we create the best build for you as a customer. Just reiterating a little bit, I know we've touched on the bathroom, Gary, thank you for that. You can see that we don't tile. We can if necessarily be, but we don't tile bathrooms. What we're trying to do is make sure that the new home is as maintenance free as possible and as easy to keep clean as possible. So as you can see here, we've got floor to ceiling aqua poly tile board, which is a 12.5mm thick tile, so to speak, but the joins there's no grouting in there, so there's nothing to get grimy or dirty. It's an easy white clean surface. And the shower seat that Betty's got in there, we now also have a secondary shower seat for people who don't like to have timber effect, or they're actually hardwood seats, those that you're looking at on this screen. We actually have a white option as well now. So it's very, very key. So it's more than a show home. So what's an open house? We firmly believe that you cannot fully understand the quality, size, and overall feel of the annexes without actually visiting one in person. That's why we're very proud that we introduce our Open House initiative. And that Open House initiative, Gary, Betty, and Sue are part of. Our past customers open their annex doors to individuals interested in exploring and learning more about the difference and the different that an iHus can give for you. It's a chance for you to step inside, look around, ask questions directly to those who have experienced living the annex life firsthand. We're the only annex company capable of offering such a diverse service, because as you can see how happy the Robinson family are with what we produce for them, we have over 100 people that are happy the way that we've looked after them. They open their doors for our future customers to be able to pop in and have a chat. It's a completely pressure-free environment. Gary and then will tell you that we don't come with you. You go and meet Gary, and they're like our representative. We don't need to have sales patter and have forcible sales, because that's not how we operate. And I know Gary, both me and Gary, I worked in the same industry as Gary many years ago. So we had a mutual agreement on how our process runs and how it works. So there's no sales pressure. And that means that you can comfortably ask questions, and our clients will give you the true answer. They won't polish anything. They'll be honest. What are the questions you ask? And they will give you. Now, there's 104 open house houses that are open to our clients, which can be arranged. So if you've got a modern mobile phone, you can click on that QR code in the middle of the screen. That'll take you into it, and you'll be able to book an open house to go and view. You can enter a postcode into our website for your nearest annex, and then you'll visit in person. You can have a telephone conversation with people if you don't want to make the journey, or you don't have the option to make a journey. But believe me, go and visit an annex, because if you visit an annex, you'll realise and you'll believe the honest opinions that our people give.
I think it's fair to say, Nigel, we've had, I think we were saying, I think probably about 10 visits, and the same questions come out. And I'm sure the people who have joined the blog today would probably have the same sort of questions as well. But nobody has, to us, has appeared to leave not impressed with what they've seen. And I think I look back to when we visited. I know it was in COVID times with the pandemic, and we visited what was a bachelor pad, where 2 bedrooms had been made into one. It was a timber frame build. The layout was totally different, but it really gave you a sense of what it was about, space, all that sort of thing. So but the same questions we asked are being asked of us now.
Which is great.
So clearly there's a theme that people have the concerns. There is a level of concern, I think, when you're looking to invest.
It's mainly the unknown, Gary, isn't it?
Yes. But what I was impressed with, let me just tell you what I was impressed with. Sure. You guys, and I'm not an employee of iHus, no way, but I'm involved in the industry, as you know, where customer service and the way you market certain things is important. And the fact that you were prepared to let us guys go direct to your customers without you being present was quite impressive, because you don't know what the customer is going to say to the prospective customer. So
Honesty is best policy.
you clearly have pride in what you do, and you're confident that your standards are good. I mean, we're 3 years down the road now from the build. I haven't had to do a thing, you know, and I think it's worth pointing out to people, Nigel, that because it's a timber frame, you will get expansion of joints.
Right.
I mean, things like, I mean, it's the 6 month, I assume, is still standard.
Yes.
Where after 6 months you get a phone call, and right, okay, what snagging issues have you got? You potentially will get some skirting boards that will sort of crack open because they've shrunk a bit. You might have a crack in a bit of plaster, etc. You know, needs decorating. I think we had one double socket that the switch was a bit dicky on. So simple things, really. But we had a visit, and the guy who came was excellent, and he did all those things, you know. And I think some people look aghast that, well, people have had your money, you might not see them again, but they do, and they do everything they say they're going to do. And it's fair to say that once that was done, after 6 months, here we are 3 years, and there's not a single crack, not a single movement on woodwork at all, nothing at all. And we haven't had to do any maintenance, which is what I was concerned about. You mentioned the Seadral board.
Yeah.
It looks the same as the day we had the keys. It's not changed a bit. And so if anybody's looking for a maintenance-free building that's going to go in the garden, there's lots of ways you can achieve that maintenance-free aspect. I would say, I think the timber frame might, if you want to keep it sparkling, looking nice, that was a timber frame we went to look at, and I think the chap had to treat it himself after about 3 years. So I would throw that in for any prospective people.
Yeah,
but the one we have is, you know, it just looks the same the day we were given the keys. So yeah, hopefully that'll help people.
Oh, perfect. And thank you for looking after the 10 customers that have been to see you, Gary.
It's good. Nice change.
The timber framing which you're talking about there is, instead of it having the coloured lap boarding that's on there, we go for an untreated oak. Now, the whole idea of untreated oak is not to treat it, to let it oxidize.
Yes.
Now, if anybody lives near thatched cottages and things like that, where you see in the top of the gable, you see it's timber clad, and that looks quite grey. Well, that's a natural oak aging process. And because of the quality of materials that we utilize, it does mean that if you want to keep that fresh oak look, then you'd have to treat it. But the whole idea of that style of timber clad is to let it age, and eventually it'll go light grey. And that's something that, as we're discussing when you're looking at your building, we go through that in a little bit more detail for you to be able to understand as future customers. So I'm going to go a little brief overview of the planning application process, because yet again, I will reiterate, it's a habitable dwelling, and a habitable dwelling means it has to have planning permission. You cannot live in something that's under permitted development. Now, planning permission, as I explained right at the very start, we apply for a planning permission as a dual application. So we'll apply for the standard householder planning, and we apply for the certificate of lawfulness. So this is how the process runs, and the planning process can take 8 to 12 weeks on average. So week 1, as you can see, submission, and then we have a 3-week validation period. And once our team of planners, which is the NAPC, which you'll see in our brochures, that planning team, as soon as we have validation, will notify you as a customer, and send you links to the planning process so you can see how everything's progressing forward yourself, rather than not wanting to make a phone call or anything like that, but it's there in black and white for you to see. Week 3, you would consult your neighbours, and normally they will send through some forms for you to attach on lampposts in your neighbourhood, so your neighbours. But a lot of people literally will not knock on the door and say, by the way, I'm putting for planning permission to have an annex. Depends on the relationship with your neighbours. Week 4, you're in a position where the local planning authority will come out and visit the site to make sure what we're proposing is correct and in the correct position. Week 5, the local planning authority go into the assessment, and from week 5 up, from the 8 weeks, we should have a decision. Now it depends on the workload of the local council. I will give you the extreme. We do quite a lot in South Wales, and we have been known, believe it or not, and Gary, this is one for you. We got planning permission in 24 days.
Wow.
Yes, 24 days. The worst one I've had in the last 12 months was 20 weeks. And that's because the planning officer went on a world cruise for 6 weeks.
All right. Consider it.
Yeah, good for him, not good for our plan. No. So that's planning. So 8 to 12 weeks in planning. Then we look at the build process. And if we look on here, again, we've got 8 weeks. So what we're saying for timescales for you is that from the day you sign your contract and we move into the planning process, we're in a position that 6 to 7 months, you should be moving into the property. Now, that's a timescale frame that I know none of our competitors can compete with at all. The teams, now, Gary mentioned the team of 4 guys. We've 10 of those teams building 50 weeks of the year. We do have a 2-week close at Christmas because we've got families too. But that's the standard process. And people will also ask at this point, a lot of people want to know, well, how much is all these drawings and things going to cost me? The answer is nothing, absolutely nothing. You do not pay iHus any money until we're in a position that you've had your quotes, your consultations, the opportunity to pick all the interiors, etc. When we're in a position for you as a customer to sign a contract, that is when you'll pay us some money. And I will tell you that that's risk-free too. Now, our planning fees and our deposit, which is the money that you pay us in the very first instance, is £4,200. That's £2,200 for all that architectural work, the planning fees and everything that goes into the process of being able to put into planning, and a £2,000 deposit that you pay to iHus to say that we're going to build it once we've got your planning permission. We currently have a 94.7% success rate in planning. That's the highest in the network by a long, long way. And that's because of the professional team that do our planning for us. But should for some reason we fail to gain you planning permission to build your annex, the whole £4,200 is refunded in full. So it's a risk-free environment for our customers. We do not want people worrying that they've spent their money unnecessarily, that they think they've given money to a builder that's not going to give them the money. That's not how we operate. We're in a position that we build homes that change lives for families. Multi-generational living is what we're about. Whether it's a teenage family moving into the annex for space, whether it's mum and dad letting their house go to their children in the 20s and 30s, and they're going to scale down and live in the annex so they're there to look after the grandchildren, or whether it's Betty, a very, very handsome, beautiful lady who's come to her retirement years and wants to be close to her family, and the family want her close to them. That's what we do. We're not here to pick you up by your ankles and shake your pocket change out. That's not iHus. So, build process. We come out of planning and we have pre-construction. Pre-construction is the guys actually, Gary will tell you, the guys actually come and do the build survey normally before we've come out of planning, just to make sure they know exactly what they've got to work with. Mm. Yeah, so we come out of planning. Groundworks is week 1. So the trenches for connecting to water, power and electricity, Remember, it's an ancillary and subservient part of your house. So all of those come from the main house. It's not separate. You can't have a separate electric bill. You can't. It's all done. But we have ways of being able for you to separate things out. Week 2, that's when, as Gary said, this lorry arrived and all the superstructure comes through. Week 3, we start the first fixings and insulation because the frame's gone up by that point. And again, this depends on size of build also. If we're building a larger building, as I said to you, 8 to 12 weeks for build, it might go on a little bit more because there's more structure to do. But the first fixings and the insulation are in. Now, what's changed since we built Gary's is we used to put the insulation in on site. We're now in a position where we've upgraded the insulation as per the new legislation rules for Part L. And a lot of it comes pre-insulated when we construct it in our factory. Week 4, the guys are there, the plasterboard's up, they start skimming the walls and the ceilings. Week 5, that's all dried out. Second fix arrives, making sure we've got kitchen, bathroom, everything in there. And then week 6, everybody says, well, why is the external works done at week 6? Well, it's a watertight building, otherwise wouldn't we do so? But external weeks, making sure that we've got the cladding, roof materials, guttering and so on and so forth. Week 7 becomes the commissioning and handover. And Gary mentioned there about the 6 months we come back. Well, when we do the handover, that handover is quite detailed. We show you how all the ovens work, how to operate the heating system, the electric heating system, and so on and so forth. We show you all that. But a building has a settling period. And because the way it's constructed, it's timber framed, there's a little tiny bit more moving than you would get in brick, obviously. I'm not teaching you your science there. But after 6 months, that usually, it's 4 to 6 months that the settling period is finished. And it may be that you've got a kitchen cupboard door that needs adjusting. It could be, like Gary said there, a crack in the plaster that needs addressing and decorating again. It could be any single thing that's not just incorrect for you, but is unnerving you or you're not happy with. Now, if it was something like, oh, I've got a leaky tap, then you'd ring us before that 6 months, and like a knight in shining armour, the maintenance team would be there to sort things out for you. But at 6 months, we do a snagging visit. That snagging visit is to make sure that that building is exactly what you wanted and exactly what we're prepared to build. And anything after that 6 month snagging visit, it's just a phone call, because you're entering a 10-year insurance-backed build guarantee. That's 2 years more than a house. So a 10-year build guarantee. You don't put a 10-year build guarantee on something that's not going to last the test of time. Believe me, I understand insurance. So that gives you a little bit more of an overview. Now it's question time for everybody who wants to open questions. Yeah. And also, if you want one-to-one, on the screen now, you'll see another barcode. Yeah, my ugly face. And my email address is there. My mobile telephone number is on there. My mobile telephone literally is turned off at 10 p.m. Otherwise, Shio must be obeyed, will not talk to me. But at my 7 days a week, I'll answer the call to any single customer at any point, because as I said, people have different lives. People work till 6 o'clock, people work till 7 o'clock shifts. If we even have to do a consultation on a weekend, quite happy to do so. So, I hope everybody's grabbed that. Now what we'll do is we'll stop sharing now. And we'll pop on screen. So if there's any questions that we need to cover for you, yeah, I'm quite happy to do so. Now we've got one in the chat, and it says, we need to get off now. Thanks for the information. It was very helpful. Okay, Nick, that's not a problem. Thank you, Nick. Is there any questions from anyone, please? I know we've covered quite a lot.
There's usually one that crops up, Nigel, all the time. And that is it warm in winter?
Yeah.
That's the question
Yeah.
everybody that's visited us has asked.
It is,
And
isn't it?
Bet decided sort of right early on, I think well, we set it at 20 degrees, all of
Yeah.
the thermostats at 20 degrees. And well, is it warm in winter?
Yeah, it's really warm.
Cozy.
Toasty warm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Too hot for me sometimes when I go over there, but
Oh,
that's the temperature she wanted.
That's a lady's prerogative to make sure she's warm, Gary. You're well aware of that.
And also the ability to chop and change your thermostats, the tank temperature. The guys had it set at a certain temperature. I can't remember what it was, but we actually turned that down because the water was too hot, which again saved on electricity. Yeah. And again, if you chop and change your rooms that are not going to be used as much, but keep them nice and aired, but not at the same sort of temperature. But the main living area at 20 degrees is probably a couple of degrees above normal, I would suggest, but you know, that's what Bet wanted, and it's fine. You know, it's yeah, got the bathroom up.
Heating was on this morning.
Yeah,
I went in there.
I think heating were on everybody's house this morning. It was 5 degrees.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same here, I think. But so yeah, that's something that we had a concern about. I was also concerned, Nigel, about before we got into the annex side of things, that the flooring, it would be a bit like a mobile classroom. I think I might have mentioned it to you.
Yeah, you did. We did.
And the rigidity of the whole build was something that was quite impressive. You don't walk across the floor and feel like you're, banging a bass drum.
Freaking about it. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
It's, you wouldn't know, the piles that are in there, screw piles, keep everything rigid, tight. It's all, and that's not changed again from the day that we took the keys. So that's, pretty good. But yeah, the is it warm in winter was one of the classics. Just a bit of advice for any potential people that are watching today. I think Bet would agree with me. We went for an air conditioning unit in it, which again, iHus sorted out for us. And I think in summer, the timber frames retain the heat.
They do?
Yeah. So, having that, and it's in the full sun as well. So it's got no shaded trees or anything around it. And so we decided to go for the air conditioning unit, which wasn't that expensive, to be fair. It's all fitted in. It's done as part of the build process on the first and second fixing. And you found that very useful as well.
Yeah, it's lovely, just nice and cool. And there's ideal. I won't want to be without it.
And it's worth mentioning that you can flick it on heat as well. So if you want that boost.
Are you still having the foam pool parties, Betty? Are you still having the raves in the garden?
Foam parties, Bet. I don't think she knows what a foam party is.
And are you still having? Have you had any visitors of your friends? Anybody come around to see you in your annex?
Yes, one or two. They've all said how lovely it was. I wish they'd had one.
Yeah, well, yeah, there you go.
Another comment we get from everybody that visits as well is how spacious it is. They thought that it would be quite an enclosed feeling in an annex.
It's bigger than what they thought.
Yeah, bigger than they thought it would be. And in the Wheatley, from memory, there's small, medium, large. This is a medium one we've got here.
Yeah, this is yours is the extra. There is an extra plus as well.
I see. Yeah, and people sort of are. The comments are, I could live here. Oh, this is nice. I could live here. The space that it has doesn't feel like you're in a little box in the garden. It's very much a home, within its own space. So that's another comment we've had from family visitors that we've received and things, positive feedback. So, yeah.
Lovely. So if there is no more questions, we're just a minute over, so that's even better. If there's no more questions, I'd like to say thank you very much to everyone. In the overcoming weeks, the people who have attended, we will be in touch to see if we can assist you any further. It's very interesting for us to get feedback from you as well on how these webinars work and if they're beneficial to you as a consumer. But in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to me, send me any messages. You've got my details from the previous screen. I would like to thank you very much for your participation. More than anything else, I would like to thank these wonderful three people that sat in front of me.
Can I just
Gary,
say, sorry, just cutting in. I would say to any prospective purchaser, get yourself to an existing annex. That's your best way of understanding what's what. You know, I know you've mentioned it about clicking on the square thing or whatever, but
openness is the key.
Yeah, get yourself to see someone, talk to somebody who's living the iHus way and has experienced it, and you will get what we found. We got a much better understanding of who we're dealing with, what we'd be getting, how it would work, etc. by doing that. You know, and I would recommend that to anybody. Just get yourself out there. So it's usually a short trip, you know, set half a day apart or something and just go for it, because it'll benefit you, no question. Sorry.
Brilliant. No, brilliant. Thanks, Gary. I really mean it. So to the beautiful Betty, thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
To the beautiful Sue, who does look like Gary's daughter rather than his wife.
And the beautiful.
And the most handsome chap, which is Gary. It's been a pleasure to see you all again, guys.
You too, Nigel.
Next time in the neighbourhood, I promise I'll call in for a cuppa.
Okay. Yeah. Would love to see you. So yeah.
Yeah. Then, and I'd love to be there. So you all take care.
Yeah. Bye.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Well done, guys. Take care. Lots of love.
Bye-bye. All the best.
Bye-bye.